channel as well. Hello, everybody on UK Time Bookland. I'm here talking with Dreda Mitchell about her latest book. If you could tell us a bit more about it, please, Dreda.
Okay, so I write lots of different types of books. So my latest book is this one, Dirty Tricks, and it's part of the Gritlit, I call it Gritlit gangland books that I write. I also write psychological books. I will be doing other types of books, but this Gritlit gangland book is about a young girl called Mo. She's 18 years old. She's a real teen tearaway. And what she wants to do is she wants to become the queen of gangland. But as she sets out to do this, she enters a real vicious gangland war starts between the guy she works for, who's called Barker, and the more infamous East End gangster who's called Jimmy Southpaw. So will Big Mo manage to stay alive? And actually, what's really happening with this gangland war?
Yeah. When you started out in 2004, did you think you'd write quite as many gang books as you have done?
Did I think I would write them?
Yeah, that would be your style.
It's not my only style. It's not. I think what I love about writing, and I will say this to any writers who are listening, is write what you actually want to write. Because my first book, Running Hot, which won the John Creasy Dagger Award, was set in East London. It was set a bit in the gangland crime world because we're talking about the lead character who got out of prison, wanted to make a change, and then he makes a false move and he's got 7 days to sort himself out. Will he or won't he survive? Will he or won't he make it to a new life? And I thought I was actually quite right in a redemptive piece. And it was a redemptive piece. But I remember a really well-known crime writer said to me, you do realise it's a chase thriller. He's got 7 days. Will he or won't he make it? You know, the clock is ticking. And so I started to write more kind of gritlit gangland books. But it wasn't the only thing I was interested in. It's interesting because we've been working with an editor at Thomas and Mercer, because we self-published, and everyone, when I say we, I'm talking about me, and I write with my partner, Tony. We've been working with an editor at Thomas and Mercer, and I've been working on another project at the same time. And these 2 angles came to me and said, why are you writing? What are you actually writing about? And actually, when I look at my gangland books, when I look at my psychological thriller suspense, when I look at the action thrillers that we've written, our books are always about young girls who are experiencing some kind of grief, who are trying to deal with grief. So to answer your question, I don't think my books are ever about just staying in one particular crime subgenre. My books, wherever I write, they're always about young girls suffering grief, and it's usually around a parent missing. And it took me a long time to understand that, a long time to get my head around that.
Yeah, because I've read your book, A Trapdoor. That was about a young girl who was struggling with debt, and that was a really unique way of dealing with that story, I thought.
It is. All of them. I mean, Trapdoor.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that came before psychological suspense as well was
Yeah.
Spare Room. Another young girl dealing with grief. And see, I'm quite open to talk about this now, because it took me, my mum passed away when she was 50, and it was all very sudden. And I was in my 20s. And I didn't realise that for years, my writing was my way of trying to deal with the death of my mother, trying to deal with grief, because I just hadn't come to terms with her passing, because I wasn't expecting it. I was still young. You expect your mum to be there to hold your hand for as long as you can. And now I've got a sense of why I'm writing. What I'm writing is making the writing process a lot easier. It's only taken me, Alex, 16 years to get here, but here I am, you know.
Well, over those 16 years, your writing process has changed a lot, because, of course, your first 5 books you wrote by yourself, but now you write with Tony. Has the style changed now you're writing in partnership?
It's an interesting thing because Tony's got a very different writing style to me. I'll give you an illustration of this. Thank God he's not here to hear me say it. He likes to ands a lot, and this and that, and I'm saying, oh God, we've got full stops for a reason. Use a full stop, please. And it's just little things like that. But I think when we sat down, we had a real good discussion that the Dreda bandwagon, the first 5 books, they were already running. So it was almost Tony was joining my style. So he would write, and he writes very differently from me. And then he'll pass it on to me, and we call it has to be dreided up. I have to then make it sound like me. And it's actually not hard to do. But what we're doing with the new books that we're doing with Thomas and Mercer, because we're going to be doing some psychological suspense books for them. They're not going to come out until 2022, the first one. But Tony's name is finally going to be on the front of front of the books as well. So we've had to take his style kind of into that as well, and I think we can do that in different ways. But to broaden the discussion, we love writing as a partnership. I mean, we love it, and actually writing as a partnership, we can get work done twice as quickly, and that's why we're able to be quite prolific in our way. So Dirty Tricks, which came out in November, the next book is out in January, because we can sit down and we can write them really quickly. So yeah.
When you're writing a series, does your Christmas tree approach help?
Say that again, Alex.
When you're writing a series, does your Christmas tree approach help with that?
The Christmas tree, that's one of Tony's words, his Christmas tree. You have to read Alex. Yeah, I mean, we're real plotters. We're not one of these people. We've got some characters, we've got a lead character, and let's just put them on the page and see where we go. I'm not saying that's not the way to do it. It is for some people. But one of the things for us is we're trying to be super efficient, and everything is about time as well. So if we try and plot out as much as we can, which is what Tony calls the Christmas tree, let's put all the baubles on and stuff. And then when you start writing, you do more or less keep to that. But you know what? It's really interesting, because as soon as you start committing these characters to the page, you start to get to understand them. And you start to get to understand that some of the stuff you've plotted for some of your characters just doesn't make sense, because you start to understand their psyche and you think, hang on, they would never do that. Actually, what they would do is this. So that's one of the things that I advocate for people who are writers, is get on and write. Don't just spend your time plotting. Plot, but you must get down and you must keep writing. And the more you write, the easier it gets, because the book just starts to flow. But yeah, we're real efficient plotters. That's something that we do. Yeah.
Recently, you've met Prince Charles because you won an MBE for literature. What would you say you've learned from your lifestyle, and what was it like meeting Prince Charles?
That was wonderful. Wow, Buckingham Palace, East End girl to Buckingham Palace. Yes, please. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Oh, we had such a great day. I took Tony, of course, and I took my sister and my aunt with me, and I got my MBE, as you say, Alex, from Prince Charles. We had a couple of laughs, I must admit, and he's a really charming man. It was a real special moment for me for lots of reasons. So it was special for me because it was an MBE for literature, and the thing that I will say is there aren't many Black female crime writers. That we are out there, but why aren't there more Black female crime writers? In fact, why aren't there more Black and minority ethnic crime writers, full stop? So that's a big thing, I think, for the industry still to think about. The other thing was the MBE was for my work that I've been doing, education work in prisons and young offenders institutes for quite a long time. And that was I had a real pride about that, because I think it validated all the hard work that people have been doing for years in prisons and in Young Offenders Institute. And my whole position is this, is people will be coming out of prison, young guys and young women who come out of secure settings rather than Young Offenders Institute. They will be coming out into the world. So of course, part and parcel of what is gone on is their sentence and they have to pay and be punished. But the rehabilitation, wouldn't you prefer people to come out who were rehabilitated, who can join society and who wouldn't commit crimes again? I know there was a third thing I was going to say about the MBE. Yeah, the thing for me is I'm an East End girl. I still live in East London. I grew up on a housing estate. There were no books in my home. My parents couldn't afford books. In fact, my parents are from Grenada, one fabulous island in the Caribbean. If you haven't been, everyone, get on the next plane and go there. Absolutely amazing place. But my dad left school before he was 13. I think when he was 14, he was a fisherman before he came to England. And my mum came to England just as she was turning 16. But a real big ethos about education. Education was really, really important. And, you know, both my parents are no longer here. And I just wish they had been here to see me get that MBE. That would have just been a cherry on top of an absolutely beautiful cake and a day. I just won't forget that day. I will never forget it. Yeah, I feel very, very honoured.
What would you say you've learnt most about working in prisons, about people and characters, and how does that make you feel about working with people that really need it?
You know, because my background is, you know, education. I was a teacher. I was a deputy head teacher in a primary school. I worked in local authorities for a long time. So a real big part of me, and it will always be a big part of me, is contributing to the community. And the way I contribute to the community is helping people through education. I've recently become a trustee of the Royal Literary Fund, and they do some amazing educational work. So once again, I hope to join that. It's part of my DNA. And particularly when I was in prisons and Young Offenders Institute, working with books is transformational. It's transformational. I think particularly for a lot of the young guys. I didn't bring it up. I should have brought it up. It's downstairs. But the first book I ever wrote, Running Hot, was about a character called Schoolboy who had got out of prison, and he had a fantastic skill. When somebody is going to give him an opportunity to use that skill and transform his life, he wants to transform his life. Unfortunately, he makes a misstep at the beginning. And do you know how many young guys I work with who say to me, that's me in the book, but I don't actually know how to do what Schoolboy did, which is make that step, that transformational step, and kind of move forward. So literature and books, yeah, they're entertaining. And I think crime books in particular are entertaining. We get a thrill from them. They move far. Wow, I didn't see that coming, twists and turns. But one of the beauties I think about crime books is they allow readers to put themselves in that situation, readers to think, oh my goodness, that happened to me. Oh my gosh, if my back was against the wall, what would I do? Oh my gosh, would I have done that as well? So, you know, for years, when I first became a writer, I mean, a lot of other writers who didn't write crime, they're all a bit quite snobby about crime books. Oh, crime books, you know, no, but the writing's terrible. They're full of, you know, duff characters. It's all a bit, you know, cardboard cut out characters, but it's not actually. And that's why I think crime and mystery books, I think, is one of the most popular genres, because people can engage with the story, but they can see themselves in the story.
What was the first book for you when you thought, oh, I can see myself in this
can't
book?
hear you. Can't hear you. Say that again, Alex.
What was the first book for you that thought that Sam, could you put the question on the screen?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. But,
I can't hear you, Alex. And I don't know what to do.
Could you just get Sam to give the messages to? Dreda on the
Okay, can you
screen.
hear me? Not if you
Yeah.
can hear me.
Yeah.
Can you hear
Can hear
me?
you. Yeah.
Um,
Can you?
okay, this is going to be a bit controversial, and people will probably say really rude, nasty things about me. But here's my response. So, I think that lots of writers who are black and brown are pushed to write stories about being black and brown, and inevitably, the story of being black and brown, the decided story is it's about racism, and all they want black and brown writers to do is to write about racism, is to write about oppression. And I say to myself, I don't call myself a black writer, you see. If I called myself a black writer, the most significant thing is the being black. I call myself a writer who is black. I'm also a writer who's a woman. I'm a writer from East London. I'm a writer with migrant parents. I'm a writer who's incredibly nosy. I'm a writer who likes politics. Can you see, once you start opening it up, all of a sudden I'm a writer who might write about racism, but you know what? I'm going to be writing about a whole wagon load of things. I think there are writers out there who want to become much more genre based, but I'm not sometimes sure if they go via what we call the traditional publishing route, they're going to end up in genres. We're getting more, but we need more. There's an issue, and people need to talk about why is there a big issue about black and minority ethnic writers not writing in genre. What you tend to find is they're always writing books about being black all the time, and I find that a bit disturbing, because the big thing is racism isn't our issue, so why the hell are we writing about it all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear us now?
So I have a rule when I go into young offenders institutes and secure settings, is no one ever tells me what they're in there for. That's not my business. My business is to go in and to work with them in terms of, sometimes it's to do creative writing with them. Sometimes it's about just hearing my story, because I have a really great story where somebody very close to me who I grew up with ended, and we were on the same trajectory, but he ended up in what was called detention center, then he ended up in Borstal, then he ended up in prison and prison again, and he managed to break the chains. So while he's doing all of that, my trajectory is, I studied for my O levels, as it was GCSEs, I got my A levels, I went to university, I went to teacher training college. So how is it these two kids in the same environment could end up like that? And that was where my kind of passion came from. So I work with young women as well as women, but I tend to work with young men a lot more. I didn't find it harrowing. I'm a teacher when I come in. I'm talking to them when I come in. Don't tell me what your crime is, because I don't actually need to know that unless you really want me to. And there has to be a big issue why I need to. Yeah. I just see it as another education setting, really. So I'm reading. How do you find the transition from gangland git to psychological thrillers in terms of your readership? Do you find that the same people read both types of books, or do you have separate readers for each book? On Facebook, I've got a group of, oh, hi, Heather. Hello, Heather. On Facebook, I've got my Facebook readers are just the bomb. They are just the best. And this group of readers who do shout outs for me, do all kind of things for me, they love books. They love crime books. So that group of readers, who are predominantly women, you get some men as well, they read gangland gritlit books, but they also read psychological thriller books. And I've just found that people like to find out about women's stories. I think most crime readers tend to be women, and they want to read stories about women. So Dirty Tricks, that me and Tony did, it's doing really well on Amazon. We weren't sure what would happen to it, but we're quite ecstatic. And so actually the people who are buying Dirty Tricks can't just be the group of readers who buy gang lit books. there must be other crime readers as well. I think what crime readers want is a damn cracking story. Put before them a cracking blurb and they will read it. Thank you, Heather.
Can you hear us yet, Gina? No. Can't. Could you?
I should wait for the next question, everyone.
Can you type the questions in the box at the side?
Can you hear me?
I can't hear.
No. Can you refresh your screen? Can you refresh your screen, please, Dreda?
I don't know what to do. I'm no techie. I'm going to turn it on and off again. Let me have a look.
Yeah, perfect. Alex, if you can hear me, Dreda's going to turn off and on again.
Yeah, I can hear you.
If some, I'm no good at this.
Do you want to tell me what you enjoyed about the last book of Dreda's that you read, Alex?
That was Trapdoor, which was released in March. That was a psychological thriller involving a fire, and then a girl who was really struggling with debt got into a job which was that unusual because she was locked in a room with other men. Wanted to leave but couldn't because she needed to stay in the job to stay out of debt. Really different book. I was reading that before I got involved with the admin team on UK Crime Book Club. So, it was when I was looking for books and randomly came across it on a Thursday, which if you're looking for new books, Thursdays are the best days to look for them because that's when they're normally.
I'm going to pop Dreda back into the frame and let's see.
Yeah.
Right,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Hello, Dreda, can you hear me?
I'm back.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to drop out, guys. Carry on.
I
think Dreda's just dropped out then.
Oh, there we go. Right.
Yeah. I was just telling the guys, Dreda, about why I picked up Trapdoor in March when I saw it on audio because then they released on Thursdays, and I got into a habit of looking at books on Audible on a Thursday to see when the new releases are. And if you're looking for new books, Thursdays are always a good day to look because that's when most books are released, guys, on a Thursday.
Oh, really? It's interesting. I must remember that.
Yeah. Trapdoor as a psychological thriller, as you were saying to Heather, is appeals to your readers, but is that a different in style in your writing too when you're writing gangland stuff?
Yeah, so for Trapdoor and the one that came before, which is a standalone, Spare Room, do you know what? I felt, first of all, their I stories, their first-person narratives. And so a first-person narrative is an individual's voice. So when you write as with an individual voice, an I story, it can't be the same as a third-person narrative. You want that voice to pop. Yeah. You want the reader to connect with it. And I just felt when I was writing it, I actually felt like I could be a lot more evocative, if you like. I could do a lot more similes and metaphors. I really wanted the reader to get in that character's head, Lisa and Rachel's head. And Lisa and Rachel talked in a particular way, so they would always describe things. I wanted the reader to smell. I wanted them to hear. I wanted them to touch. I wanted them to really connect to both these young women's emotion. So it's a lot more, I would say, yeah, the gangland books are a lot more emotion filled, but these books, wow, the emotion, you know, when you write about how someone is feeling, you don't, to me, I don't just say something like, oh, I'm feeling a bit down at the moment. You describe, what's that down feeling making me feel like? What's it doing to my body? What's it stopping me doing? You know, am I feeling shaky? Do I need to sit down? Do I need a glass of water? Is it that I can't look somebody in the eye? So they're much more, I suppose they're much more intense stories. But then I think first person narratives are much more intense. And I love writing them. I love writing them. But I also love writing my gangland books, and I love writing the gangland books because I can actually use the language of the housing estates that I kind of grew up in, and the women who I grew up with, these tough women who care about their kids, you know, but who are incredibly vulnerable and quite fragile inside as well, because life has really knocked them about. So, and that's what I love about crime fiction. Crime fiction is not just one fits all model. It's got loads and loads of different subgenres, and you can write in lots of different styles. But I love all the styles that I'm writing.
Linguistically, when I was reading Trapdoor, I found it faster paced to build up the tension. How do you?
We've lost Alex. Fun and games. So, a question that I popped into the stream earlier on while we try and get him back is, how did you and Tony decide to work together, and how does it work so well? So I know you've touched on it a little bit, your relationship with Tony. Yeah.
Okay. I would like to say I tell you to get on with the work when I have a cup of tea, but that's not quite how it works. Because we're partners as well in real life. We've been together for a lot of time, so we understand each other. So there's no drama here when we work. Yeah, there are some intense arguments and stuff, but we understand each other. We know what our goals are, and we understand what our skill sets are. So I think Tony is much better than me than finding dramatic and really great twists and turns. So, for example, with Spare Room, there's something he thought of the character, and I won't say why she does it, but at the end of a chapter, the character ties her foot to the bed, the main character, and you're like, what's that about? That's Tony. He's got a devious mind. I could never dream something like that up. Whereas I am much more into the characters, who they are, what their emotions are. And I think we would agree when we write like our psychological thrillers, that kind of really getting into the emotion, I kind of do that maybe better than he does it. So what we do is we're really frank and open. What are our skill set? How can we use them to our best of our abilities? And I think that's why we write what I consider to be really cracking and great books. And there's no drama because we know each other. There's no drama in our partnership when we write. We know we will get there. The issue for us is, because we are also partners in real life, is to have that dividing line between the work and our kind of domestic life. And actually lately it's all become a bit messed up. So over Christmas we're gonna detangle it again, really, because we've been working really, really, really hard this year. We really have. We've been working too hard, I would say. Yeah.
As I was saying before I went off, linguistically, your psychological thrillers during the tension points are written at a faster pace. How do you do that to keep the tension? Because I'm hearing.
All right. Okay. I think a lot of it's to do with knowing your plot and story, but it's the use of punctuation. Punctuation is a really powerful thing. And like I was talking earlier about Tony and his ands, okay? So let me give you an example here. I ran down the road and went around the corner, okay? I ran down the road and went around the corner. Here it is again, but with no and and a full stop. I ran down the road, went around the corner. That's much more breathless, isn't it? I ran down the road, went around the corner. So, you know, I think full stops are a really powerful thing. So all of a sudden, when we get to the tense bits, if you notice, the sentences will become a lot shorter because we're using our full stop. Boom, 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 boom. We almost want the writing to have a heartbeat. We want the readers to feel that kind of heartbeat as well. So punctuation is really important. And I think as well, because with writing, it's what it looks like on the page as well. So paragraphs are really important. If you've got something that you want to stand out, don't just have it in a paragraph. Why don't you just make it on its have its own line? If you want that to resonate with the reader, make it have its own kind of line. And the other thing I would say is very often with beginning sentences, like the start of a book, I think people sit there for, I don't know what the start of the book is, and they're doing this for months and months. Write it, and I'll tell you what, when you write something and you read it aloud, the start sentence is there, it will jump out at you, and you'll think, oh, there it is, you know? So I think because I've got an O level, I don't know if people remember those, that's an equivalent to a GCSE, but I've got an O level in English language, but I've got a grade C. I've never done English at university. I went to university, but it wasn't to do English. And I've got a grade C as well in English literature. Now, I can't remember why I'm saying that. It will come back to me. It will come back to me. Ask me another question and that'll come back to me.
I was thinking about because I think you did history for your first degree. What made you decide to do history as a first degree option?
Okay, I've got an African history degree, which is really, really interesting. So I've got an African history degree from SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies from the London University. And I did it for lots of reasons. So the first reason is my history teacher at secondary school. Oh, you couldn't have a better history teacher. She was phenomenal. She made it sound like history was all these stories, but at the same time, you learned how to write essays. She was just incredible. And at the same time, I was going through a bit of I suppose I was going through my first kind of political kind of moment. What I realized in school, and this is back in the 70s and the early 80s, was there were not lots of representation of Black people in books. We didn't study any history to do with Black people. And I kind of wanted to find out more. And I remember I went into my school library and there was a book called The Black Jacobins. And it was written by a historian who's very well known. He's passed away now, C.L.R. James. And it was about a slave rebellion in Haiti. And I thought, what, did slaves revolt? I thought they were all waiting for Abraham Lincoln to free them. And that's not the true story. And, you know, at that moment, I realized I want to find out more about Black history. I want to find out more about Black writers. And I never forget, I went to see my incredible history teacher. And I said to her, Miss, this is what I want to do. Where do you think I should apply to do it? And she said to me, you need to apply to SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies. And that's the reason that I did it. And I just found out so much, because SOAS is really renowned for having one of the great university libraries, which I didn't know at the time when I went. And I got an education. I got a fantastic education. And you know what? It just set me up. And what it set me up for was, because remember, I come from the East End of London, a housing estate. It set me up for understanding there's a big wide world out there. And you know what? That big wide world is for me. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find my place in it. And I'm going to do amazing things.
When you'd done that and you went on to do your creative writing course, what was different about that? And what did you take from your first course when doing the creative writing course?
You mean when I went to the Groucho Club course?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is another story. So I've been working in education and I've been pretty successful as a teacher. I've done a master's degree. I was going, and then all of a sudden in 2001, I thought to myself, I think I want to write. But I had a bit of a hang up because I've got an O-level grade C in English language and English literature, which doesn't suggest I'm going to be the best writer in the world. But you know what? I thought I'm going to see if I can find a course. And, you know, women tend to like kind of social groupings more. So I found this course the following week we had that, I don't know if it's still around, Time Out magazine, and they used to advertise courses in the literature section as well. And there it was, a beginner's creative writing course at the Groucho Club. Now, the Groucho Club is a really famous club in Soho. You need to be a member to go to this club, but it said you don't need to be a member to attend the class. And I never forget this. I talked to a friend of mine who's very close, and they're still a close friend of mine. And I said to them, I'm going to apply. And Alex, what do you think my friend said to me?
Knowing what my friend said to you, would have said to me, they would have said, are you sure it's for you? Or something like that.
They said to me, don't do it. Someone like you won't get in. And do you know what the you was? All right, so you're a teacher, but don't forget you come from an East End housing estate. Don't forget you've got a really strong London accent. Don't forget your parents both left school before they were 16. They genuinely thought I would be out of my depth. And, you know, if people say to me, I can't do something, it's like a red rag. And I thought, I'll show you, even if I have to get through the window, I will get into that class. And I rang up, and Maggie Hammond, it's just such an amazing story, said, who ran the course, said, I've got one space left. So I got the last space in this class. And I never forget setting off on the Saturday morning. It was a really clear blue day. The sun was shining. I got out of Leicester Square. I walked down to Soho. But do you know what was happening as I was getting closer and closer? Is I was remembering my friend's words. And that seed of doubt was growing and growing. And by the time I got inside the Groucho Club, I was like a tortoise with my head inside a shell. No joke. I was down like this. I walked into the class. I found a corner to sit in. I don't want anyone to notice me because my confidence was all over the place. And then I said to myself, you know what? You're here. You've paid your money. Do your thing. And as the course was going, I didn't realize Maggie was really loving my writing. And then she set up her own publishing house from her house in Hackney. And then I'd left the course because back then it wasn't, it's a great course now. It's got lots and lots of different parts of it. But back then it was just the one course. And she rang me up and she said, I've got my own publishing house. We're going to publish an anthology. Can we have the first chapter of your book that you've been writing in the class? And I thought, whoa, this is great. No agent involved. And that's what I did. So that's how I first got published, was with Maggie. And then 6 months later, she said, we're going to be doing novels now. I love your book. Can we publish the whole thing? And that's how Running Hot got published. It got published in a house in Hackney. And this is the book that ended up winning the 2005 John Creasy Dagger Award. But you know what? I think the message that I would give people is people have got your best intentions at heart, but sometimes you know where you want to go. And if I had listened to my friend, I wouldn't be sitting here now talking to you. Yeah. You know, you've got to take chances in life. And if you fall flat on your face, so what? Just pick yourself up.
Yeah. You're right. Your writing journey has been up and down since your first book, but you're now with Thomas and Mercer, which is the Amazon online publishers. So that must be yeah.
Yeah, so before we came on, everyone, I was telling Alex that I'm quite a good example of what's kind of happened to the publishing world. So when I first started out, it was with a small independent press, Maggie's press, Maya Press, from a house in Hackney. Then after I won the John Creasy Award, I was then published by one of the big 5 big publishers. And I think I was there for about 10 or 11 years. And then I kind of realized I was not growing there. And this is nothing to do with the publishing house. They do what they do, but I do what I do. So I left, Tony, we left. and we decided we're going to publish our own thing. My God, this is really scary, self-publishing. And we did, and we published our own book, Blood Secrets. And it was interesting because we didn't think we would do that, because it's the 4th book in the series that we've been writing for the publisher who've been with. But you know what? All our readers said, no, we need a 4th book to finish off. And for us, readers are number one. Readers are kings and queens. So that's why we did it. And then we hooked up with a small digital place, Bloodhound Books. Oh my goodness. Wow. Did we have a time? Did we have the best time of our life with them? Because we wrote a psychological thriller. We'd never written one before. And you know what? This just did the business for us, because it was the #1 selling psychological thriller on Kindle here, but also in the States. And then we rethought, what are we doing? So we're at the stage where we're publishing our own things as well. So we've got Dirty Tricks that we talked about. But we're also working with doing our psychological thriller books with Thomas and Mercer. We wanted to find somewhere a bit bigger for us to do our psychological thriller books. So yeah, so we're really happy working with Amazon Publishing. But we've got the best of both worlds, because we're doing our own thing ourselves, and we're working with Amazon Publishing. And Amazon Publishing were very receptive to us doing our own thing as well. And I think sometimes with some bigger publishers, they're not that receptive. Things might have changed, but I know my history back then, it wasn't like that. And I was saying to Alex earlier, I think it's a writer's world at the moment. Writers, if anyone listening is a writer and you are in a place where you don't feel happy, you're losing your confidence, get out of it. Get out of it. Do some self-publishing yourself. There are loads of courses out there. There are loads of books. There are loads of forums. People will help you. And actually, you can do what people call a hybrid model. You can be doing your own thing. And it's good to have that control, let me tell you. And you can be working with a publisher. And now what we have is we have lots and lots of small digital publishers. And sometimes at these digital publishers, you will get a better royalty rate and you will be better looked after because they're smaller. It is a writer's world. No writer should be moaning. Get out there and do your thing.
What with writing the 2 different styles and writing for the online publisher and yourselves, how have you structured the time? Because you said your latest book's going to come out in January, your new one.
Say that, Alex, if I could, did you ask me about how I'm using my time?
Yeah, how would you structure your time?
Oh man, okay, so I'm an early bird. Tony kind of wakes up in the after, he's wandering around the house and he does wake up eventually at 2 o'clock. So we're 2 different people. So I get up, if say we've plotted a book, we divvy up the work to a point. I get up and I'm early bird. I get up about 6:45. I do 5K on my exercise bike every day. And then I'm working till about 2 o'clock. And then Tony starts working from 2 o'clock to kind of later in the evening and the night. We set ourselves goals. And currently our goals are, we write 2 chapters each a day. And our chapters are like 2,000 words each. I can do it because when I write, I'm just in another universe. I think one of the things when I do interviews like this, or when I talk at creative writing classes or conferences, I hope one of the things I want to leave with people is everything is achievable. If you want to write a book, it is achievable. What you have to do is set yourself goals. So for example, say me and Tony wrote a chapter each a day. That's 4,000 words a day. How many words is that at the end of the week? How many words would that be at the end of the month? We probably finished our books, because our books tend to be around 80,000 words. I think what we found is we're older now. We wish we were sweet 16, but we're not. And we kind of want to do other kind of things. I used to do a lot of broadcasting and a lot of reviewing of films, particularly not books so much. And I used to do a lot of creative writing classes and all. I've cut all that out now. All I do now is my writing, really, and my work with the trust, and I'm an ambassador for the reading agency. We just want to enjoy other things as well. I want to be able to have a day where I sit with Netflix and just catch up with a box set. But this year we've been, just because we're doing lots of new things, and we've been doing, I mean, I can't go into it, but we've been doing some TV stuff that's been very exciting in LA, and film stuff that's been very exciting in LA as well. For next year, we've got to learn to manage our time, because you only get the one life. And I don't want to look back on my life and think, I wish I'd done this and I wish I'd done that. I'm going to do the works. I'm going to do it all. My whole life is not just about writing books. I'm not just a worker. I'm a person as well.
As you got older, do you think your characters will change with you?
Do you mean the characters in the books?
As you get older, do you think your characters will change as you get older? Do you think they'll change with you, or do you write older people or younger people?
Okay, so this is an interesting thing. They tend to be younger people because, as I was saying before, I tend to write about young women. Have I spoken? I don't know if I said this. I know we talked about it. What did I talk to everyone, Alex, about what I realised I was writing about in my book?
I think we were speaking before, but I don't think you mentioned it.
So I'm writing about young women and grief. Okay, that's what it tends to be across all of my books. It took me a long time to realise that. But what we learned was, in the Gangland books, we wrote a series, the Flesh and Blood series, which was about two sisters and another woman from outside and their mother. And the mother, Babs, was the add-on. But when we finished writing the first book, what our readers were saying to us was they loved Babs. As far as they was concerned, the series was about Babs and her daughters. And a lot of our Facebook readers are women of my age, slightly younger. So people want to see themselves reflected in books, people of their age. So for us, the Gangland books, we have older people as well as younger people. So in the Dirty Tricks books, there are two older characters, Brother Bertie and Ruddy. And I knew people would love them. But we learned that from our writers. And I think the thing when you're a writer is you respond to your readers. I know there's a fashion at the moment for people who are self-publishing to write books very, very quickly. And I think that's great. But the problem is, if you write books really, really quickly sometimes, you're not stopping and hearing what is it your readers are saying they're enjoying, what is it the type of characters that your readers are saying they would like. But I have to say, in our psychological thriller books, they are definitely about young women. You get older characters in them, but the main characters are always young women, because I see those books as a kind of a much more of a reflection of me and me trying to deal with my grief about the death of my mother still.
When you're dealing with the Gangland things, do you find that you've got a larger set of characters, or is it just because of the style, or is it a larger set when you're doing your psychological thrillers?
What we have is, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
It's all right. It's fine. The psychological thrillers, do they have more characters in them, or is it your Gangland that has more characters in?
No, the psychological thrillers have much less characters. We deal with a really small cast of characters, and we deal with a very small number of settings as well. We don't have lots of settings. In our Gangland books, we have a core set of characters, and then we'll have a lot more other characters, because the Gangland books are a series, so you would expect to meet people, whereas the psychological books it's a much more small contained world, and this smaller contained world doesn't happen in many places. So, with something like Spare Room, I'm trying to get that word, Spare Room, you've got the spare room in the house, you've got occasional glimpses of her workplace, you've got where she goes to see the psychiatrist, and you've only got a few places actually. And I think that works for us because we're able to contain the stories and contain the narrative and really drive the plot forward. These gangland books, they're sprawling, they're epic, they're about characters, they're about territories, you know, and that's what we love about them. So with the gangland books, you might meet a character and then you might not see that character again for a couple of books, because actually their place is in book 3, and then they might come back in book 2, but the core characters are always in it.
When you know a book's a series, how do you end it when it's over 40 years, like your Blood Sister series? Because it's a long period, isn't it? 40 years to write about.
How do I end the series?
How do you end each book? Because it's a long 40-year arc.
We do think with the gangland books, we do think beyond book 1. We often try and plot out, okay, what are the first 3 books? Actually, before that, what we plot out is what is the time span of this whole series in terms of years. How many years is it really? So what are the things that can happen to the characters within those years? But you also deal with, I think, you know, with each subgenre in crime, as with any subgenre in literature, they all come with their tropes. People pick up those books and readers expect, you know, stories about, with the gangland books, they expect stories about women in particular. They expect stories about vengeance. They expect stories about family relationships, about betrayal, about crime. But I think the thing with crime in gangland, it is there, and you do it. But I think the more important thing is the relationship between the people. Yeah. I think we do that because we're plotters. I don't kind of understand how other people wouldn't do it. And then it makes it more efficient. But when you write a book, you listen to your readers, and if they say, oh my God, I love those characters, you've got to think, oh, that character wasn't really in the next book. Do you know what? We'll have to go back and have a think, how can we incorporate those characters? Because we want our readers to have the greatest experience possible when they read our books.
When I was doing my research earlier today, I was listening to you on an Audible interview, and you were talking about Martina Cole. What was the influence she had on you, do you think?
Okay. I think Martina Cole is a goddess. She is. There would not be this subgenre with her and, I can't remember her name. There was another writer, I think, who she went to talk to as well. Oh, what is her name? East End writer. But Martina Cole, she started this subgenre, really. She got it rolling. And I've got a lot to thank her for. When you're a writer starting out, it is hard to get people to notice your work. It is hard to get people to give you quotes. And, you know, I met her at a crime writing festival in my early days. And then I contacted her because I wanted a quote from a book, The Great Martina Cole. Can I get a quote? And she said to me, oh, why don't you come and spend a day with me? And, you know, I went down and I spent the whole day with Martina in our house. And she gave me a quote. And I think, to me, that symbolizes the crime writing. Crime writers are generous. There are other writers in other genres who are not so generous. Crime writers are very generous and they will help each other out. You know, one of our greatest supporters has been Lee Child from the off. Lee has just always been there. Lee is huge, one of the biggest writers in the world. And that's what I think with the crime writing genres, everyone's pretty human. What you find in our world are people who have worked. We're not talking about people who've come from Oxford and Cambridge and then they've gone straight onto their literary career. They're people who have worked, who've got a humanity about them, who understand the world, who've had their own ups and downs. So I've been very, very honoured and very privileged to have some really big writers. Peter James is another one who've really, really helped me on my way.
One of the reasons that I picked up Trapdoor was seeing you on Pointless with Jeffrey Deaver. What was it like? What was it like being on the quiz show?
Okay, well, that was my second time on Pointless. I think I'm going in the right direction, shall we say? So the first time I was on Pointless, I was with poor Richard Maley. Poor Richard Maley didn't know what hit him when he got me as a partner. And we got knocked out in the first round. And I would have never, ever got that question right. And I had a great time. And then the second time I came, I was partnering with Peter James. And Jeffrey Deaver, I mean, how Celebrity Pointless managed to get Jeffrey Deaver, who I believe has sold like 90 million books. I will never know. But I've met Jeffrey before. And once again, he's grounded, wonderful. All the people in the crime world are grounded, wonderful people. I believe, you know, the Harrogate Crime Festival.
Yeah.
When they were first starting out, you can imagine you're first starting this festival. Is it anyone going to come? Is it going to be a success? And they kind of just rang people up. And he was one of the people they rang up and said, will you just come? Will you come? And he just came, you know? Yeah. Not many other, I think, kind of types of writers will do that. So it was great. It was fabulous. But the ones, I can't remember their names, but the ones I was really excited about being on the show were the two guys who wrote Birds of a Feather and Shine on Harvey Moon were there. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I was in seventh heaven, I tell you.
Of course, talking about Theakston, you chaired it in 2011. What was that like?
Oh, it was fantastic. First of all, whoa, couldn't believe they had actually asked me to do it. And then I realised, oh my gosh, it's a blank canvas. I can invite who I want. Yes. So I invited Lee for a start, Martina. They both came. And then I had a real think about, well, how can I incorporate the kind of work that I've been doing in prisons and stuff? So I worked with someone to help me. And we actually did a panel about former offenders who were now writers, came on that. Oh God, what's that MP's name? Oh, I can never remember anyone.
Jeffrey Archer.
No, the other one. There were two of them.
Yeah.
The other one, the one who came before him, who ended up in Brixton prison. Him anyway, he came.
Yeah.
And it was a great panel. And also we managed to get, because I'm quite interested, we read crime, but what is crime like out there? You know, let's get a touch of kind of the reality. And we managed to get Howard Marks. So Mark Lawson got Howard Marks. And that was really interesting because what they found at the festival, for just that event, they got loads of young people and students coming because he's kind of revered amongst them. So that was really interesting for the festival, kind of capturing that new audience. Whether they kept that audience, I don't know. But I just had it was an honor. It was one of those, you know, you've got those markers in life. That's one of my markers in life, being asked to share the Harrogate Crime Writing Festival. Yeah, brilliant.
I must admit, it has been one of the most iconic bits about my reviewing career. As we've only got 2 minutes left, if we could go to audience questions, can you see any on the side there?
Oh yeah, I can see loads. You were saying not to worry about writing because it will take care of itself once you get going. Right. That's what it's called. It says write, which means you have to write. Right. Do some plotting beforehand, but just write. Once you start writing, you will just get over it. I mean, I wish there's lots of tips you can do. Okay, so here's one tip that you can do is when you're writing something, what you're going to write the next day, write the first line, and then when you come back the next day, your writing's already started and you just continue writing. Another thing to quickly do if you're learning to write is don't worry about spelling, grammar, punctuation. Say this sentence: I walked into the room, or my character walked into the room, and just free write. Just write, but you must write. Okay. Used to live in Haggerston. Haggerston Estate off the Kingston Road. Was just wondering if you're from that. Yeah, I used to work for Hackney Education Department. I used to be the deputy head of the Ethnic Minority Achievement Service. So one of their education departments. So I know Haggerston. I know it well. And Stoke Newington, I love Stokey. It's my end of town. Thank you so much for a great interview. Oh, I need to read more books from Dreda and Tony. Yay, Samantha, fabulous. Samantha, good on you breaking these assumptions. My parents didn't finish school in a teacher. My brother's a pilot. You can achieve it if you can. You can. You know what my dad taught me? My dad said to me, you will get knocked down in life, because that's how life works. You know, this idea that you're happy all the time is just not true. You will get knocked down in life. The important thing is to pick yourself up. And actually, as I've gone through life, I realized something else. When you get knocked down in life, don't get up straight away. Have a think, have a plan, then, and take a breath, and then get up. You know, life is for living. So let's live it, and let's live it the way we want to.
That seems like a great thought to end on. Thank you so much, Dreda.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Lovely. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye. We've got Neil Broadfoot next week, everyone. So thank you so much, Dreda, and I'll see everyone next week on Monday, 7.